on female founders and women doing extraordinary things in business. And let me tell you that my guest today is also our sponsor, and I absolutely friggin' love what she's doing. So welcome, Eve John.
Hi, Jules. Thank you so much for having me as well today. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, I just think that you're wonderful. I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to share it. So let's start off with, what is the name of your business, which is plastered all over this anyway? But why don't you tell her, what does Boardroom 51 mean?
Yeah, thank you. So Boardroom 51 is, I started as a bit of an ode to women who are wanting to move into a boardroom role. And the reason I went for Boardroom 51 is because, to be really honest, Jules, I'm actually not happy just having like a 50-50. I actually think it's time for us to have the majority.
I didn't realize. I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's because like the data shows that when you have more women in a boardroom, more women where where decisions are actually being made, you're getting collaboration, product design's actually better, profits are higher, and businesses are actually more socially responsible. And that means that we're able to take businesses and do amazing things, not just for that business and their client, but for the community and for the world at large as well. So I really think it's time for us to start stepping up and inching towards the majority, where we're still sitting at about 30%, 33%, depending on the data that you're reading. And it's going to be a slow burn, and I get that, but I think what's the point of having a goal? You may as well go big.
I absolutely agree. And one of the other things that I often talk about with people is just the logic of it. Like, to me, if half your customers are women, why the hell wouldn't you have half of them making the decisions around what's going on? And I talk about, I've got two brothers who run beer companies, and I'm constantly saying to them, you need more women on your boards, because you have women who buy the beer as well. It's not just for the blokes to make all the decisions.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think that's spot on, and I think there is obviously in the across boardrooms and across governance, there's a lot of talk about diversity, and I think a lot of people, when they think about diversity, they think of obviously women, they think of people with disabilities, people from different types of groups. But what I think we miss is, when we're talking about diversity for boards, we're talking about diversity of experience as well. So that's business experience, lived experience, product experience, and those sorts of things as well. So I think that's a really important thing to think about, because you want to actually be able to not just have and I've been it, and I know you've been it too, at speaking events. We've been a token woman. So I think that's something that I'm really trying to change, and that's really what I'm being able to help some of my clients do, and the results are outstanding.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. As you know, I mean, last year I did a poll on LinkedIn around, do you think it's fair to only have one woman on a board? Because when I went into a deep dive on the ASX 200, when they were saying we have 30% women, I went in and had a look, and so what's 30% of 200? So there were 40, I think there were 39 companies that had women on their boards. When you take a deep dive, something like 28 of them had one woman on their board. And then when you look at the names, it's the same 5 women that are on all the different boards. And I just feel like, the more fresh blood we can get into it, the more diverse, as you say, experiences, the better it serves everyone.
You're right, and I think you and I we have a mutual friend, Leila, who talks about venture capital, and one thing that I love is she talks about, and it's very much the same at the ASX board level. We've got people that they went to the same schools, the same universities, they worked at the same companies, they have the same career trajectory, and she says that it's basically, you've got the same opinion, but with boobs.
And it's being reflected back to you, so you're getting the answer you want.
Yeah, that echo chamber.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So I'm not working with women that are at the ASX level yet.
no, I
It's kind of,
understand.
you know, I think that's a big misconception with boards. Women are like, I want to go and be on the Disney board, but I can't be there yet. And I sort of equate it to a little bit of an apprenticeship. That, you know, you got to start small. You got to learn things. You can get training when you're smaller. You can get mentoring from people. You know, you're going to build up your skill set and your knowledge base, and then you progress as well. And
Yeah,
I think
nice.
there's a big misconception, because the average age of a board member right now in Australia is 60 and 1 month, right?
Wow, so we haven't got any youngies in there at all,
No,
really.
no. And the statistics for women under 40 were so low that they wouldn't even give it a 0.0 something. I
Oh
couldn't,
my
you know,
God.
the McKinsey stuff.
Wow.
You can't find it. So it's a really important thing to. There's this big gap, and you and I know the skill set of women in between that age bracket is absolutely phenomenal. And I think people think that, oh, I have to be retired to be on a board because it's going to take up all of my time. I have to have experience to be on a board. I have to know people, and I have to have a qualification. And there's some really, really great training organizations out there that do qualifications. And I think one of the things that I would like to see a little bit more of, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that they're not specifically aimed at women. And we'd love to say that women are all treated equally, but
Wouldn't
they're
you
not.
just? No.
You know, I've walked out of boardroom meetings and sat in my car and cried,
Right.
just from the misogynistic tones, the you know, some of the racism. And it's, you know, it's really hard when people don't understand what they're actually doing. Oh, well, you know, I'm a 65-year-old man, I'm not going to change now. And I'm like, well, that's okay, but we can't have that kind of attitude in, you know, as a public board,
No, no, not at all.
because our
And
shareholders won't stand for it, and neither will our customers.
yeah, which is good, really, isn't it?
100%.
So, look, I've got a whole heap of questions for you, but I'm
Cool,
just going
cool.
to keep going. What about payment? Because what I've heard anecdotally, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the women that are on boards are often on the not-for-profits. They're the community groups. They're on the board of their childcare or their you know, local footy club or whatever, but they're not looking for, or they're not being given the opportunities where you get a paid role. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's I could go for hours, but I know we're
Yeah,
on a
great.
time.
All
That's
right,
a
I'll give you
really
5 minutes. Go
That's
for
all
it.
right. No, that's a really great question. And I think we end up, and I'm going to speak from my experience and the experience of a lot of the women that I've worked with, and most of them that are around my vintage are mothers.
Yeah.
And we end up being on these boards because we're mums and we want to contribute. And we all know that these organisations, the sporting clubs, the charities, they run on the smell of volunteer sweat.
Yes,
And tears,
absolutely.
right? So I think I don't have. If you want to go and do that, and right now I am on a volunteer board, because I really believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm also on boards that pay.
Yeah,
As well.
right.
So what I say to women is that if you've got some experience, don't disregard that because you weren't paid. You're still responsible. You know,
Oh, yeah,
there's
totally.
directors' duties, and you're still responsible. So you might not be paid, but if something goes wrong, you're still going to be under
That's
fire.
right.
I always say to women, if that's something that you've done, you need to track it. I'm okay with you doing volunteer work.
Yeah.
As long as you're using it as a stepping stone and you're doing it because you're passionate about it. I see a lot of people that are on boards and they want it because of the title.
Right.
Now, I don't have an issue with that, but I do have a disclaimer. Okay.
Right.
I'm very happy for you to be on the board for the title, but that doesn't mean that you just get to be there and sit back and rest on your laurels. You still need to work.
Yeah.
You need to put the time in. You still need to be making sure that you're doing anything, you know, making sure that you're following through it, and, you know, you're actually an active and contributing member. So I think for those women who are out there and have been on volunteer boards, committees, advisory, you know, making sure, sitting down and actually reflecting what's actually changed.
Yeah.
Now, people go, oh, but I can't remember what I did. Excellent. Go and download the AGM notes. Because there's always, even with volunteer boards, there's always an annual general report.
Well, my next question was about the amount of governance that you really need to understand, which is, I've been on a couple of advisory boards and one board, but I have to say the governance is something that I find completely overwhelming. And so you need to be that person that is great with, understanding, I guess, how the rules work and understanding that the buck kind of stops with you as the board if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, and I think that's where the misconception that you have to have the biggest industry myth is that you have to have a qualification. Being on a board is actually not a recognized profession. It's not like an accountant or a chiropractor or a teacher. While certain sectors do require some prerequisites, or some boards are looking for, if you're going to be the finance director, they might want a CPA, which I get. As a rule, there's no hard and fast qualifications. So what I do as part of my training is we do look at governance, and the way that I do it is that I have a fictional company. And we've got all of the records and all of the things, and we problem solve and we manage risk. Now, people, when they do worry about like, oh, I don't know, all of the guidelines, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like when you started a job and they make you do the OH&S.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to have a broad understanding. Then it's up to you to take that further.
Educate yourself.
Yeah. Exactly right. The ASIC has some really, really great training that you can access. A lot of not-for-profit boards can give you access to other organizations.
Board 51.
Board 51 as well.
And you're supported by another woman who's 100%. Done it before.
Yeah, 100%. And we work as a group. And one of the things that I often that I do as part of my training is every month we actually have a board meeting.
Right.
So, you're expected to have learnt the terminology, how to disagree and negotiate, how to stand up for yourself, how to use all the terminology that you're expected to use, how to read the reports, how to ask good questions. Yeah. Because I think a lot of women, when they walk into their first board role, they're really concerned about, I'm not going to know enough. And the studies actually show that men won't actually go and get a qualification until they've been on 3 or 4 boards. Women won't get a qualification. Women will get the qualification first and then go searching for a board role.
That absolutely makes sense when you think of all the other things that women, don't apply for jobs until they've got 90%.
100. I know. You and I will put our shock faces on now. But I think what's really important is that, when you're starting on a board, it is on the company to put you through some training. Right. So there's an onboarding process, and most companies are quite diligent with the onboarding that they do. But again, it's not something that you can go, oh, okay, well, I've learned all of that.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think it's particularly important that you do start looking for roles where you are paid. Now, my first board role, I think it was like about $6,000 a year. And
I mean, to me, it's like, as long as you get some source of payment, it's saying I value you.
100%.
And it's paying you back for the time that you're putting in.
Yeah, yeah. And I look at, so I was recently working for a really large not-for-profit Christian organization, and there was always these questions about why is the CEO paid this amount of money? Yeah. And, and it is, I understand the questions that people have around that, being that it's a charity, but you need to get good quality people in to be able to do the role, because if you don't have good quality people, there's a reason this business has been around for, 55 years, right? Because they've had strong leadership. So I think that's a really important part of it. And, my role, my future plan is to actually be on 4 boards, and that will be my income. And doing other things that I'm really, and I know the ones that I want to be on, and included in that is actually a volunteer role, a volunteer board. Yep. So you actually can make pretty good money being on boards. Again, but it is a tiered structure. So it is one of those things that, even I know now,
you work your way up a little bit like any other job, is it?
100%. It's career progression. And I think setting the target of where you want to end up, I know where I want to end up. And I'm still probably a few steps off the ladder away from that, because I've got some work to do. But it's like, as you said, like any other career progression, you've got to be able to go that step by step by step. Yeah. But like anything, you've got to start somewhere.
So my next question was going to be about the time commitment, but I want to jump over to it's all about who you know, because we know that, God love them, the Old Boys Network works extremely well in this case. And I know a couple of the boards that I was on, we had a guy come in and they said, look, he's been on 5 other boards, he's a mate, we'll bring him in. And he came in and he was just, I don't want to say useless, but kind of sat back and was like, yeah, I do this all the time. And, there's not much involved. So, and of course, what I'm doing with She's the Boss and feel so passionate about is that women connect with each other and have that support network. What do you think about building up your networks so that when board opportunities come up, your name goes forward? I mean, do you put yourself forward and say, I want to be on this board? Do you just go out and start networking with those people?
Yeah, well, my background's in copywriting and marketing, so
Yeah.
and a little bit of PR. So some of the ways that I use it, Jules, I think you'd be like, oh, I could very PR.
Go on, tell me all.
So you're right. Knowing there again, that's probably, it's very common. Like probably about 60% of board roles are filled by someone knowing someone.
Yeah.
But it's 2024. Nobody really cares if you went to a high-rolling elite private school or who your father's old mates were or who the golf club can introduce you to. Networking, you can get a board role on your own merit. Now, networking is a fantastic way to go about it. I think specifically the way that that I teach my clients is not to just do a scattergun approach.
Be strategic about it.
100%, and it's very much like a bit of a web of getting closer to people and closer to people and closer to people. And it's I kind of relate it to someone that I know that got their product in front of Kim Kardashian many years ago. She started sending the product to the hair, someone who did Kim's hair, someone who did this, someone who, until everyone around it's going, what? How come I don't know this person? So that's one way. Finding out what's going on the board and applying, getting in contact with the chair, reaching out, doing that. Oh my gosh, a cold call or a cold direct email. Shock and horror, because people actually do want to know that you can communicate, that you can actually talk as well. There are job boards that are advertised. As well. But if you came to me, Jules, and you said, okay, I want to be on the board of, the Council for Women. I go, okay, first thing you need to do, Jules, is you need to go and find all of the directors. Okay. Yeah. You need to then go and find them on LinkedIn, start connecting with them on LinkedIn, maybe reach out and say, hey, I'm really interested about in becoming a board member. Could you share a couple of tips with me, or is there any insight, or is there anyone I can speak to? Go through, read the annual general reports, follow the company, set up LinkedIn alerts and Google alerts. It's kind of like you want to build that, that relationship, so that you might not technically know the person who's on the board for the Women's Collective, but you've contacted her. She's seen you on LinkedIn. She's given your resume. She's handed your resume into the chairperson, or you've sent it to the chairperson. Yeah. So it's some of the old school methods work, and then some of the modern things that we can do as well. But I think for women, we're a bit like, oh my gosh, what if I get rejected? It's like, that's okay.
I know. Which of course, you got to take, I mean, it's the same with PR. It's the same with just about everything. It's the same with trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn. They may reject you.
100%.
That's not about you. That's just about, bad timing, or could be
100%. And I've never, in my experience of helping women doing this for the last 4 years, I've never had someone that's been rejected in a negative context.
Yeah, great.
It's always been, thank you, but not right now. Thank you, but you don't have the experience. But we've had people that have been, we'd love to chat to you. Yes, we'd love to have you on board. Hey, we don't have this, but we've got an advisory committee. We'd love to have you on there.
Yeah, lovely.
Well. So if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no.
No. And so my next question is, I am guessing, because we have so many boards that are dominated by men, that as a woman, as long as you do know your stuff, you're probably in with a pretty good chance if you are going to boards with a whole lot of men on it. Am I wrong? Or I mean, because I hear, you hear it all the time. They know they've got to have the diversity. Do they push back if you say, you know, can I be the one of the token women on your board?
I probably wouldn't phrase it like that.
No,
but no. I know what you mean. Sadly, well, I guess boards have their own. I guess it depends on the type of board that you're going for, and if it's a large company board, there's often a directive that comes with it, and they might have a diversity. You know, I think it's DESI, diversity, equity. Social inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if that is managed by the marketing team or the PR team, you've got Buckley's, right? Because that's crisis management. I think you need to be able to demonstrate your difference. Being a woman is a difference. But as we said, if you went to the same, the same school, the same job, you've had this, and this, and the only difference is you've got a pair of boobs, that's not relevant. I think it's being able to show your unique value to the business. And so the first board that I was ever on, my unique value was in PR, marketing, and social media. And I was the youngest on the board by about 15 years.
Right.
And so they didn't have, they weren't doing social media stuff. They weren't doing, they were like, if we build it, they will come.
Yeah, right.
Which doesn't happen. So I went in with a bit of a, hey, this is my value. This is the area of expertise that I have that your board members probably don't.
Yeah.
But again, it came down to research. I knew who was on it and what their skills were. And that's something that I do with the first thing that I do with all of my clients. It's the first thing that I do in my workshops as well, is what is it that you could do that not a lot of other people can do. Now, as women, we're not, most of the time we're numb to our own knowledge, right?
Yes.
Like you've got so much experience in PR, and if I said to you, okay, but can you write me a tagline? You'd be like, oh, geez, I'm a bit, and I'd be like, Jules, you've probably written 847,000 of them. And we get really numb.
We go, well, that's not really a skill. And you go, well, actually, to anyone else out in the rest of the world, it is.
100%. Yeah. So what I do with the women that I work with is we'll go and have a look at what the company is, like the big dream company that they want to work for. Start going, okay, what are they looking for? What have I got? And then we fill in the gaps as well. The other thing that I do as part of my I guess this is where I'm different to a lot of other, well, obviously small, we're mentoring, we're working together, you're not in a group, and it's specifically for women, is that I have you could probably call them electives, 4 standalone trainings that people can do in areas that people don't, that most boards need. So cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's some really great cybersecurity courses, but I've got some training on cybersecurity, and then I suggest, hey, if you want to be the expert in this, because this is your jam, go do that. Working at the GEDC, so the gender inclusion as well. Again, boards are looking for it. Not a lot of people have done it, so I've got training.
Okay, great.
As well as social media and marketing. So those sorts of things that I know based on my research, based on the women that I'm talking to, based on the boards that I am consulting for, what they're looking for. So I'm like, well, hey, I've then gone and worked with experts. We put some training together to just tasters. To get you enough to get you started feeling confident. And then if that wants to be where you want to go, there's some really great trainings there as well. But we always seem to be looking for this, we're looking for that.
Okay, well, look, we're chomping through the time. And one of the questions I wanted to ask, which you've just answered a bit of, but what sort of services does Boardroom 51 offer? You talked about a group training, one-on-one coaching. Do you want to just quickly run through that?
Yeah, of course. So I do both. I do have a group training program where I call it pods. You're sitting you're actually in a pod, and you become the board for, you know, that particular pod. And we work through the training. We look at, you know, setting up, you know, taking you from being a, you know, an unknown to an expert, positioning you as an expert in a particular area. So people start coming to you. We then looked at, you know, we then work on, you know, the one-on-ones, the communications, the things you have to know, and how to be a board member that's actually valued and contributing as well. And then we move through to, you know, the next step. So, you know, leading a board, the chair, and leading as a woman as well. So so I do that as a pod. Some people want to go really fast. It's kind of like getting to the airport. They want the VIP on the limousine the whole way. So I do work one-on-one with a lot of women as well, particularly because they know what their skill set is, and they just need that little bit of, we've got to fill a gap. So we'll fill that gap. So what I'm doing at the moment is having some online workshops. I love face-to-face, but I think at the moment it's a little bit easier.
Well, it can get across the whole country.
100%.
You know, and because the other thing is we need those rural girls to be able to be on boards too.
Yeah, most definitely.
And, you know,
and I think the other thing is as well, like a lot of boards now are moving to video meetings.
Oh, are they, to online, kind of like do it over Zoom?
So it's important that you get that skill. So and what I do is we look at, you know, the companies that you want to work for. Then we reverse engineer to, let's start with 10 on your list. We look at what exactly is going to be your unique value proposition. Same as, you know, if you're a business, this is looking at your personal brand. And then we actually put in a plan of how to get you in front of the right people. Just to start, you know, just easing into it. So you end up, you might not be front of mind, but when they're starting to look for
you're in the mix.
You're definitely in the mix. Or if you apply for something and your name comes up, or you can send a resume direct to someone because you're like, oh, we've been LinkedIn connections for the last 3 months. So it's really about that, because what I feel is that most of the time women are facing so many obstacles with this. And, you know, I found for me that I'm really tired of watching women work below their level of competence. And that's because of, you know, they're so competent in what they're able to do, but they don't have the confidence in being able to do it. Discrimination is a big thing. Lack of childcare, small networks, different choices that we've actually made. And I think for me, it's being able to pull in all of the diverse things and the experience that women have and build them up to be on boards, because my philosophy is I don't actually think governments are going to change the world. I think it's businesses and community organisations. So
and also that we can't sit around and wait for it to happen. We need to actively help ourselves.
100%. And you know what? If you can get the board title, which arguably is more effective and a lot less intensive and cheaper than getting your PhD or your MBA, you can make more money doing this. It gives you that sense of self, that validation that you actually do know your stuff, and you can make good money doing it while helping organizations and starting. For me, I do a lot of philanthropic work. So starting to push, saying, okay, so what are we doing for the community? So this allows you to put it all back together.
It ticks all those boxes that
100%.
mean so much to so many women.
100%.
Oh my God, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Very quickly, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way? Via social media, via your website? Can you give us?
So you can find me at LinkedIn, just /Eve John. You can find me on Facebook as well, just with Eve John, just my personal one, which is open, or on my business page, which is Eve John Australia as well. You'll see my lovely smiling photo with my very squinty eyes as well.
Lovely eyes.
And that's
find Boardroom 51. Have you got a website?
Yeah, I do. It's just boardroom51.com.au.
Perfect. Okay. Well, honestly, Eve, I am so grateful that you're supporting us. But apart from that, I am just also so grateful that you've got this service and that you're out there actively helping women. And what I love, I think, about your strapline and your story is it's not just about preparing you, but I'll help you reach out and get that role that you want.
100%.
Which I think is, you know, really distinguishes you from others. So fantastic. Oh, look, we've got a little comment from Joanne Brooks about what a lot of gold shared today. So hopefully we are going to inspire some women to get in touch with you and get moving on their boardroom career. Huge thank you to you for the sponsorship.
Pleasure. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. If you are a woman in business and you're looking for support, please go and have a look at She's the Boss group. We have a whole lot of women. We are incredibly supportive. We want to lift each other up. We want to see everyone shine. We also have a gazillion events during the year, and I have just been bedding down, I think, 15 in-person events between now and Christmas up and down the coast. So from Brisbane to Adelaide, if you're interested in connecting with other women, then please make sure that you come to one of our events. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted there. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or join our incredibly active She's the Boss Facebook group. I coach women in how to become a woman of influence, so how to raise your profile so you're all ready to go on boards. I am also a mentor and advisor, and I'm always up for working with a small group of women. So if you'd like to work with me, please get in contact. And last but definitely not least, and I know it's close to both of our hearts, it's very important to me that we see more women on stages, as only 70% of speakers at business events at the moment are men. God love them and we need them, but we need to get more women up on stages. So we have a directory at womenspeakers.com.au that people can join. We've also got Facebook and LinkedIn groups under the name Australian Women Speakers, where you can jump on, meet a whole lot of other speakers, and we're all talking about how can we actively get out and get more gigs. So sorry for that, but thanks so much, Eve. Really appreciated it, and I look forward to it. Louise Williams has just said she's on a board herself and she loves this. And somebody said that they will catch up with me in Brisbane at our business event. So thank you, and see you next week, 11 o'clock Monday morning.